and welcome you back to our 6th in a series of 7 virtual workshop trainings on trail interpretation, design, and construction. We heard from Larry Walling yesterday, who did a great job of getting us started on this topic. We are going to switch things around just a little bit this morning before we get back to Larry. Andrea had wanted to share another example.
Tomorrow.
Right? Oh, I'm sorry, tomorrow. Got it. Yeah. All right. I was confused by that. Yeah, so we are back with Larry.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Sorry. I'm sorry. There was a flurry of emails this morning when I woke up and I was trying to capture them all. And for some reason, I thought it was this morning that we were going to hear from Andrea, but she correctly pointed out that it's going to be tomorrow. So why don't I go ahead and pass it over to Pata to see if he has any announcements or opening remarks for the group. But again, I just wanted to welcome everybody back to the 6th of the 7th session. I know it's been long days for our colleagues in Georgia because it's 8 hours ahead of us here on the East Coast. So we appreciate you sticking with us. You've been asking really, really good questions. I was really impressed with the examples that you came up with yesterday and the day before. So thank you for your engagement and your interest in this subject. So I will hand it over to Pata and then we'll hear from Larry to get us started. So thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Not much to say today. We are just on the same training course, and then we're in the same theme, but with a different session. Larry will make us to navigate through tools and many interesting techniques, how to really prepare ourselves for designing the trails. So Larry, it's your turn.
Thanks, Pata. And Pata, there's a video in this next session. How do you want to translate that? Do you want to just tell me and I can pause it while you translate, or just let it play?
We actually distributed that video to everyone.
Okay.
That's a YouTube video, right? About that.
Yeah. Well, yes.
About that device. So they have this video. They get a chance to see, understand that. So no need to we cannot translate that because
just show it and we can discuss it as needed. Yeah. Okay. Yes. All right. That sounds great. So let's rock and roll. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this second session. Today, as has been said, we're going to cover the tools that are needed to design trails, and then we're going to kind of walk you through the process. But first, let's talk with or deal with the tools. And generally, when you're planning and getting ready to design a trail, you would find a topo map of the area and kind of plan out your trail. You really can't in detail design it this way, but it's a good way to kind of get a high level planning of your trail done. And in the US, obviously these readings are above sea level in feet, and on the Georgian maps, they're in meters. I did find a map, elevation map of Lagodekhi, and I tried to use it, but it was just it didn't have a scale, number one, so I couldn't tell distances, and I didn't feel like I wasn't very comfortable using it in general because I didn't think it was very accurate. So you can plan on paper, but you really need to design on the ground. And one of the tools we use to design is called a clinometer. And this, you've seen the video I'm going to show in a little bit. And using the clinometer makes kind of quick work of the field process. And so it's a handy, lightweight instrument. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide and play the video. It has, well, the video explains it. So let's just do that.
For the Envirothon, you're going to need to determine slope of the landscape. So I've got two different methods to use here today. One is with the clinometer, and the other is with an older instrument known as the Abney level. They both do the same thing, but in slightly different ways. The Abney level is a little bit of an older instrument, and what it is it has a scale here that you line up with, and it gives you a percent marking. It also has a level bar with a bubble in it. There's a mirror inside the Abney level that bounces the orientation of that bubble into the eye hole so that you can see it and line up. There's a bar across the front that gives you that level marking, and you're going to look from this hole across the slope stakes. This is one slope stake here, and I'm going to try to line it up with the slope stake at the opposite end of the field, and then I'm going to turn the dial to get the level lined up. Then I can look at this dial and see where it's pointed, and it will give me my percent slope. So I'm going to get down, place the Abney level on the slope, and line up the line I can see on the inside of it with the top of the other slope stake. Then I need to move this, and it's going to turn that leveler with the bubble in it ever so slightly, and I need to get the line on the leveler with the bubble lined up with the line I can see through the Abney level. Once I've done that, I can take a look at where the marker is on this level, and it will tell me my percent slope. So I can tell from here it's a 1% slope. The other tool we can use to measure slope is a clinometer, which is a little more modern than the Abney level. And instead of having a mirror with a level bar that's reflected it into the eye vision for you to line up with the level itself, this one has an internal dial. As I rotate the angle of the clinometer, it rotates this meter on the inside. So the trick with looking through the clinometer is I have to keep both eyes open, because with the Abney level I could see through the tube to the other stake, but for this one I need to have one eye open to see the meter on the inside of the clinometer and the other eye open to make sure I'm lining it up correctly with the stake on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and get over here and place the clinometer on top of the stake. Now, sometimes if your stakes are really close together, you need to make sure you angle the level meter line on the inside of the clinometer with just above the stake. These are pretty far apart, so I can aim pretty straight for the top of the stake and be good to go. Now, there's 2 meters inside this clinometer, and one side reads percent and one side reads degrees, just like a protractor that you might use in geometry class. Now, it's important to make sure you're reading the correct scale. This one happens to be a 1% slope. If I'm confused as to which scale is the correct one, I can always turn the clinometer up all the way towards the sky, and at the bottom of the percent slope, there will be a percentage sign. You'll also notice the percent scale goes up in number very rapidly, as opposed to the angle scale, which won't get to 100 degrees unless I was turning over backwards. It's really nice to have stakes to shoot your slope off of, but things happen. Sometimes they get knocked around by other wildlife or participants that are out on the site. If it's not the exact same height in both locations, you're going to need to adjust. And there's 2 ways to check that. One way is stand right up against the stake and mark a point on your body, walk down to the other side of the slope stakes, make sure the other stake is about the same height. If it's not the same height, you're going to need to slightly adjust which angle you're shooting at to make sure you're shooting at the correct elevation on the opposite stake. Another thing you can do to double check is shoot the slope both directions. I got 1% here, so if the stakes are at the same height, I should get 1% shooting back. It should just be positive in one direction and negative the other. If I got 1% here, but I got 5% when I shot from the other direction, I need to figure out what's going on. Are my stake heights slightly off, or am I, needing to work on my clinometer method a little bit better? Sometimes we don't have stakes laid out for the landscape that we're in to determine slope. In that situation, you need to find a partner on your team and a spot on their body that's the same height as your eye level. That way they can pace off in the appropriate direction for the landscape, and you can make sure you're shooting the slope on the right point. So with Keith here, I can tell my eyes are about the same level as his chin, that area on his body. So when he goes up a hill, I can make sure that I'm shooting to something that's the same elevation above the ground as my eye level.
Okay, so oops. So another instrument that could be used to help you create a map is something like this device. And there are another company. There are other companies that make these sorts of things. The downside of this is they're $9,000 or $10,000, and you have to use them a lot to warrant paying that much money. But they are useful for particularly large parks that have a lot of resource management issues. You can map floods or fires or anything that you're mapping. If you have plants on the red list, you want to map their location or the extent of the range or whatever. You can do that with this device. But we won't be using that unless you have $10,000 you really want to spend on this equipment. The other thing that, and remember, this is low tech stuff. So we're going to be using a tape measure, and this is a 100-foot or 30-meter tape measure. And for our purposes, we would take the tape off of the reel because the reel's awkward to try to wind it up and mess with the reel. You'll see that in a little bit when I show you how we're going to use it. But we found that about 100 feet is a really good distance, and or 30 meters. So this is another thing we're going to be using is a field book, and we'll spend a fair amount of time talking about how to take notes and what to put in your field book. But your field book allows you, it's a hardback book that you can write notes in, and you can keep that to reference later on when you're working on the design and the drawings.
I'm sorry, Larry, do we need to pause and allow Pata time to translate? He hasn't translated for quite some time. So I just want to make sure that our audience is fully understanding what's being communicated. Pata, are we okay?
I think today we have a completely English-speaking audience.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that.
Yes, okay, but when Larry is over, I will just have a little session to summarize.
Okay, great, thank you.
Please, Larry.
Okay.
Continue, please.
Yeah, and thanks, Pata. And Ethan, thanks for reminding me because I'm just rolling. You'll need a black permanent marker, usually a broad tip, to mark on some of the flags that we're going to be using. I'll talk about those in a minute. And a pencil. You want to write in your field book in pencil so you can erase and draw sketches and things to make it easier for that. We'll also be using the vinyl flagging, and you saw some of this in the video where they had it tied to the stakes. It's easy to use and identifiable, and I'll show you how we're going to use that. We'll also be using wire flags or stakes to mark the distances, and it's very handy to have a carrying bag this one is out of stock, but we did procure one that we can use to carry the flags in, because they're a little awkward to carry in your hand. And then the last piece of equipment, and maybe Sandy can speak to this if he needs to, or if he'd like to, is an auger. And Sandy's found this useful in Alaska, where there's maybe subsurface water, and you want to make sure you know what the soil conditions are. This can be useful. So we don't know what the soil conditions are in Lagodekhi. An auger could be useful. Sandy, any additions to that?
I'm unmuting.
Okay. Sandy, are you still muted, or?
It looks like
How
he's
we now?
still.
How
Yeah.
are we now?
We can
Okay,
hear you
yeah,
now,
I can hear you.
Sandy. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. The value is that if there's any chance of there being subsurface water that's near the surface, this can save you quite a headache when you start construction, because you'll know that there is water there. And usually what will happen is, if you put this auger in the ground, go down, let's say half a meter, and pull it out, if there's much water, the water will come bubbling up out of the hole. So it can just save you a lot of headache for something that's very easy to use, if there's any possibility of subsurface water. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Thanks, Andy. And Pata, a question for you. It seems like on some maps of Lagodekhi, I see artesian wells in the town. Is that correct?
In town?
Yeah, well, maybe outside the park.
They have
Are-
wells, yes. I'm not sure about artesian wells, but they have wells. They're using wells.
Okay, I just thought I saw some on a map, so I thought maybe there could be water issues, and this might be handy. So, all right, so these are the tools that you're going to need, and I'm going to switch to another presentation.
So just quick questions from my side.
Sure.
This is actually this drill is for checking whether there is under soil water, right?
Yes.
It's for checking that.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
that's correct.
And for measuring the angles, can we use other equipment? For instance, this.
That's what we'll use the clinometer for.
Theodolites or something like that.
Pardon?
Oh, yeah. Okay. There are some equipment.
No, we're not.
Which
So let me go to the next screen, and then we'll talk about your question. Is that all right?
Sorry.
Okay, so I need to. So did you all get my email? Yes or no?
I did.
Did the class get my email? That's the question. Pata?
I did not.
I
As well.
got
I
it.
didn't receive any email.
Me too. I don't have email as well.
I think I got it personally. The PDF file, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
I-
here's what was, regardless, this is what was in the email. And the reason I sent the email is if when you're working with a client, sort of the best practice is to sit down with the client and to ask questions to try to understand clearly what the scope of the work is. Pata, do you need to translate this or not?
I'm confused why people never got it because you used it emails, right? You had
Yes.
from the list.
Yeah,
I just resent it to the entire group. I replied to all and I included the 2 attachments that Larry sent. So I am also surprised that folks didn't receive it because I had given Larry all of the email addresses from everybody who pre-registered for the workshop. So maybe take a look again at your inboxes. Maybe it had gone to your junk mail. I'm not sure.
If you would just to be on the safe side, Ani, can you send this again to all of the distribution lists that we have for our
Sure.
correspondence?
Okay, I'll send.
So just to be in
yeah. I mean, we can go forward. But in the future, I want to send some more things out. So I want to make sure I have a good list.
Yeah, now I have it.
Okay. Was it hidden?
No, I just received the one that you have just sent, not previous
Oh,
one.
okay. All right.
Yeah,
me
Should I send it again or not?
Honey, I don't think you need to, because like I said, I just sent it and it sounds
Yeah,
like,
we just received it. We just received it.
yeah, great.
And then again, this is the issue, that's something wrong with the Larry's message. That was because of the Ethan is using the same emails. And again,
Yeah.
the list I provided, that list what we have. We keep the correspondence through those distribution lists of emails. And I don't know what's the reason why that never worked. So we can
Yeah,
find
well,
out later about that.
Okay.
Again, do you want to go through those questions, Larry, now? Or?
I do. And Pata, don't give away the answers.
But I'm afraid the most of answers should be coming from the Lagodekhi folks. Do we have a
Well-
Lagodekhi people today? Ani, do you see them?
Sorry.
Ani, can you see the Lagodekhi?
Yeah.
I didn't see.
Sorry, Lagodekhi is not attending right now.
Yeah, those questions are mostly. Or Natia, can you answer those questions too?
Hello, everyone. I can answer some of them.
Yeah, at
Okay,
least
well,
some,
let's
at
just,
least
let's
some
just
of them.
go through the list. And actually, the answers are important for you, for the group that's going to be designing this trail. So it's, this is something that this group, the people that are working on the design and construction, would need to sit down with the people at Lagodekhi and get the answers to these questions. And Pata and I have talked about this, so I think we have a pretty good idea of what the answers are going to be or are. But it's important to be asking these questions. And if we don't have answers today, you can get answers after the class. But at some point in the process, you'll need to answer these type of questions and maybe others that you have. So.
Yeah, when I'm looking to the questions, some of them could be answered only after the design team actually visits Lagodekhi and starts designing, right? For instance,
Let's clarify here. Those are critical questions, not all, but some of them that the team of designers should ask the, as Larry mentioned, client, but in this case, the partner, Lagodekhi administration.
yeah,
to
I understand that.
To gather some information that is critical.
Sure, but
for the
they
design.
not they can't answer these questions today before they go to that site and to check
Yes.
with them, etc., right? So
Yeah, that's not a point today to provide some answers. This is more about the knowing the questions of that sort should be asked. This is the rationale behind of that slide.
So shall we just go on, or do we need to go through this list?
Why don't you still go and then just to provide the bit of rationale why you have those questions? Well, what is the importance of those questions for the design task?
All right, and you want to translate, Pata?
Yes, yeah, go ahead and now.
Okay, so well, the first question is how will the trail be used, and that's kind of important to know that because that will tell you how wide the trail needs to be and kind of what the surface is. And so, you know, for a backcountry trail, it's just one person wide. It's a single track. But for front country trails, which this trail is going to be, you know, you're going to be having groups visit. And so the trail would need to be wider.
ეს კითხვა რომელიც თვითონ ბილიკის დანიშნულებას ეხება, თუ რა გამოყენება ბისთვის არის ეს ბილიკი, მნიშვნელოვანია, რა თქმა უნდა, ბუნებრივია და ლოგიკურია ამ ბილიკის განზომილებებისთვის და საერთოდ ვთქვათ გადაწყვეტებისთვის არა, რაც სიგანეს უკავშირდება და კიდევ სხვა საკითხებს. ლერიმ გაიხსენა, რომ backcountry trail-ი როგორც წესი ვიწროა, იმიტომ რომ სამხრივია და ერთი ადამიანის ერთდროულად ერთი ადამიანის ასე ვთქვათ სიგანეზეა გათვლილი ერთი ადამიანის გადაადგილების, როდესაც front country trail-ის დროს შეიძლება ჯგუფი მოძრაობდეს ერთდროულად და შემხედრე მოძრაობაც იყოს, ხო? ამიტომ და გამოყენებები დანიშნულება ერთ-ერთი გადამწყვეტი საკითხია, ხო?
Yeah, I can say right now that it will not be narrow for one individual.
არა, ეს კი ამ შემთხვევაში ამას გია, ამას არა აქვს ამ თუჩი მნიშვნელობა, თავი არსი გვესწროს, ხო?
I understand, yes, and I'm responding to your question.
Yeah, next question, Larry. How wide?
So we're talking about the width, and so the next question has to do that. And I'm just thinking, if you have a lot of school groups, for example, that come, you know, 20 or 30 people that come at once that are going to be going around the trail and looking at waysides, and you might have an interpreter, you know, leading that group. That to accommodate groups like that, you know, means you'll need a wider trail, obviously.
All right. რა თქმა უნდა, ისევ ამ იგივე საკითხს ეხება მეორე კითხვა. იგივე სარკვევს, ასე ვთქვათ, თუ ჯგუფები ერთდროულად შედარებით მსხვილი ზომის ჯგუფი ხდება ერთდროულად, მაშინ რა თქმა უნდა, უფრო განიერი უნდა იყოს ეს ბილიკი, ხო? ამ საკითხს ეკავშირდება ეს. შემდეგი next question, Larry.
So the next question just has to do with accessibility standards that we talked about yesterday. And if you're going to follow those standards, you know, it will sort of dictate the width of the trail and also the hardness and the durability of the trail, and that sort of translates into ease of maintenance.
შემდეგი კითხვა ასევე მნიშვნელოვანია ძალიან, ჩვენ უნდა გქონდეს პასუხი, ეს ბილიკი უნდა პასუხობდეს თუ არა ამ ხელმისაწვდომობის სტანდარტს. გახსოვთ რაც იყო, ამაზე იყო მთელი წინა სესიები. თუ კი, მაშინ შესაბამისად ეს კარნახობს სიგანეს და ასევე ზედაპირის დამუშავების სადმე მოთხოვნებს, ხო? რამდენად მყარი უნდა იყოს და ასე ვთქვათ, შედარებით გლუვ ზედაპირიანი და საიმედო გადაადგილების დროს რომ უძლებდეს დატვირთვებს, ხო? ეს უმნიშვნელოვანესი საკითხია. Next question, Larry.
So the next question has to do with affordable construction materials and sources of, you know, if you would use a concrete paving, you know, is there a concrete batch plant around, or if you're going to use an aggregate or gravel pavement, is there a source for that? And, you know, can they mix gravels to come up with a mixture that will serve your purpose. You know, are there timber products, galvanized hardware available? All these things. You don't want to be waiting once you start construction to try to figure the answer to these questions out.
უნებრივია რომ პროექტირების დასაწყისშივე გასარკვევი იქნება გარკვეულწილად ჩვენი ასე ვთქვათ სამშენებლო მასალების არსენალი, ხელმისაწვდომობა, რაზე უნდა გავთვალოთ ასე ვთქვათ ეს ჩვენი პროექტი, ხო? რაც შეეხება თქვათ არის თუ არ არის იქ ხელმისაწვდომი ხის მასალა, ღორღი, ალუმინის ასე ვთქვათ პროფილირებული მასალები და ასე შემდეგ, ხო? რაც ბუნებრივია პროექტირების დროს უნდა თავიდანვე იყოს განსაზღვრული, ხო ეს? ამიტომ ასეთი მოკვლევა იქნება აუცილებელი. Next, Larry.
So the exhibits, we've talked about exhibits, and you know, in the lead up to this training, the number of exhibits has fluctuated. So obviously, you need to figure out how many wayside exhibits you're going to have, and where they'd be located along the trail.
შემდეგი საკითხი ეხება ჩვენ საინტერპრეტაციო ასე ვთქვათ პანელების რაოდენობას. ბუნებრივია გახსოვთ ჩვენ ორი ტიპი გვექნება ხო, ერთი გვექნება დახრილი დაფები, როდესაც უშუალოდ იმ რესურსთან იქნება დაკავშირებული, რაც იქვე გვაქვს და რაც საერთო თემებია, ასე ვთქვათ, გვექნება ვერტიკალურები, რამდენი რაოდენობა რა გვექნება, რამდენი შესაბამისად რა თემებზე იქნება ხო, ის განსაზღვრავს რაოდენობას და მდებარეობას. Next, Larry.
And you need to know how the trail will be constructed. So in strict nature preserves, I assume you can't use mechanized equipment. So it would have to be constructed by hand, but if it's not in a strict nature preserve, can you use mechanized equipment or not?
შემდეგ კითხვა ეხება მშენებლობის ორგანიზაციას, ასე ვთქვათ, მეთოდს, ხომ? მექანიზმების გამოყენება შეგვიძლია იქ თუ არ შეგვიძლია გამომდინარე რეჟიმიდან. ეს ბილიკი განთავსებულია აღკვეთილში და შეიძლება თუ არ შეიძლება ეს უნდა გაარკვიოთ ლეგალურად და თუ არ შეიძლება მექანიზაციის გამოყენება, ან თუ არის ესეთი მცირე მექანიზაცია, რაც ამას სჭირდება, თუ არა, მაშინ ხელის შრომა უნდა იყოს გამოყენებული, თუ არა. ანუ აი ეს არის კითხვა. როდესაც საუბარია როგორ უნდა ასე ვთქვათ მოვაწყოთ ბილიკი. Next, Larry.
So the next question has to do with storage of materials and supplies during construction. So generally during construction, materials would be delivered somewhere close to the site, and then would be the constructors, the people building the trail, would have to transport the materials out to where you're going to install it. But there needs to be an area where you can store materials and supplies during construction. So that has to be identified early on, and you've got to know you generally want to restore that area because it's going to be damaged from having all the materials and supplies on it.
შემდეგი საკითხიც ასე ვთქვათ, მშენებლობის ორგანიზაციას უკავშირდება და ასევე გარემოზე ზემოქმედებას. ანუ ჩვენ ეს ჩვენი სამშენებლო მასალების დასაწყობება სად უნდა მოვახდინოთ, საერთოდ უნდა მოვახდინოთ თუ არა ამ ტერიტორიაზე და თუ კი მოვახდენთ, შემდეგ როდესაც დავამთავროთ შენებლობას, როგორ უნდა მოვახდინოთ ამ ადგილების ასე ვთქვათ რეკულტივაცია, აღდგენა. აი ეს მნიშვნელოვანი საკითხია თავიდანვე, გასასაზღვრია ეს და ბუნებრივია რომ ნებისმიერ სრულფასოვან პროექტს უნდა ქონდეს შენებლობის ორგანიზაციის თავი, ასე ვთქვათ. Next, Larry.
And the next question has to do with maintenance. You'd like to know before you start construction how the trail is going to be maintained. Will it be maintained just with hand tools, or will there be mechanized equipment used? Because that could influence the grades and the material, the track or the tread of the trail.
ასევე მოვლაპატრონების საკითხი, რომელიც უმნიშვნელოვანესი საკითხია და ყურადღება უნდა მიექცეს პროექტირების დროსვე, უნდა გქონდეს ეს მიდგომა თავიდანვე განსაზღვრული. ჩვენ აი მოვლაპატრონების სამუშაოებს უნდა ვატარებდეთ მხოლოდ ხელის ასე ვთქვათ ინსტრუმენტებით თუ მექანიზებული მექანიზაციის გამოყენებით. თუ მექანიზაციის გამოყენება იქნება საჭირო, მაშინ ეს თავიდანვე განსაზღვრავს ზედაპირის სიმყარეს მოთხოვნებს, ზედაპირის სადმე და ასევე სიგანეს, ბილიკის და დახრილობის საკითხებშიც უნდა ეს იყოს გათვალისწინებული. Next, Larry.
The last question has to do with identifying the accessories or furnishings that you're going to provide. And you'll have to know what they are and where they're going to be located.
This ბოლო შეკითხვა შეეხება იმ საკითხს, თუ რა სიხვალცირე ინფრასტრუქტურა იქნება აქ საჭირო, როგორც იყო მაგალითად იგივე ბარიერები, თქვათ საფეხურები, ხიდები, ურნები, დასასვენებელი ადგილები, ანუ სკამები, ბენჩები, ასე ვთქვათ და trail head-ი, ასე ვთქვათ, თავიდან რაც ეწება, რომ ასე თორე შეიწყება ეს ბილიკი საწყისში და ასეთი ტუალეტი თუ არის ასეთი ასოცირებული მცირე ფორმები, რაც აქ შეიძლება იყოს საჭირო, უნდა გქონდეს განსაზღვრული და ამიტომ კითხვას უნდა გქონდეს უნდა გაიცეს პასუხი, ხო? გვჭირდება თუ არ გვჭირდება, რა არის ეს ნომენკლატურა და სად უნდა იყოს განთავსებული. Thank you, Larry.
All right. And Pata, too, these questions help with budgeting. So, should I walk through the design process or not?
What process? Say it again.
The design process.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, sure. Yeah, start from the pre-design.
Yeah, preliminary designs.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go back. I'm sorry. So there's some different stages of design. The first stage is sort of a planning stage, which is very general, let's say. And I'm not getting very specific about this, but it would say, yeah, we need an interpretive trail at Lagodekhi, for example. That's sort of the level of planning. This is the first step.
But Larry, in this case, we should mention the connection to the other planning documents, like the management plans.
Yes.
Because we are talking about, some other plans that are determining the location, needs, because that's not a standalone activity, a standalone infrastructure, right? That's a part of the entire
exactly. And I just don't know what has been done at Lagodekhi, so you probably have a better feeling for that than I do. So you could explain that.
პირველი ნაბიჯი ბუნებრივია, როდესაც ისაზღვრება, ეხლა თქვენ შეიძლება ვიფიქროთ, რომ უკვე გასაზღვრულია ეს, მაგრამ მაინც უნდა გესმოდეთ მთელი პროცესი. დაგეგმვის სისტემა მთელი საფეხურებრივი ციკლური პროცესია და ერთ-ერთი რასაც მახსენებთ არის მენეჯმენტის გეგმა, ხო? რომელიც საზღვრავს საჭიროებებს, მდებარეობებს, სიმძლავრეებს, სად რა უნდა იყოს. და აქედან გამომდინარე უნდა იყოს ეს ბილიკი, რაზეც ჩვენ ვსაუბრობთ, ხო? ანუ ამიტომ ეს დაგეგმვის ეტაპი არის ასეთი საერთო ჩარჩოსი მონახაზის, რომელიც წანამძღვარს გვაძლევს შემდეგი ეტაპებისთვის. Please continue, Larry.
And the next step would be a preliminary design, which would be in our case sort of a first effort at laying out the trail and answering these questions.
პირველი ეტაპი ამ პროექტირებაში და ეს არის საუკეთესო პრაქტიკა, რასაც ახლა ვსაუბრობთ, ცალკე გამოყოფილი ესკიზური პროექტის ეტაპი, როდესაც ასე ვთქვათ, ყველაფერი თითქმის ჩამოყალიბებული გვაქვს, შეიძლება ალტერნატივებიც გქონდეს, gadაწყვეტების, ეს მნიშვნელოვანია, რომ ამ დამკვეთმა აირჩიოს, ხო? და შემდეგ უკვე დავამუშავოთ დეტალური პროექტი.
The next step would be a comprehensive design where you get more detail to the design and have answers to these questions. You'll know what the trail surface is going to be, how long the trail is going to be, so you can refine your cost estimate and your budget for the project through answering these questions and the design of the work with more specificity.
და ამის შემდეგ, ხო, როდესაც შევათანხმებთ ამ ესკიზურ პროექტს, ჩვენ დამკვეთთან და მხარეებთან, ვინც გადაწყვეტილებას იღებს, და ვირჩევთ თქვათ ალტერნატივას თუ გექნება ასეთი ალტერნატივა რა თქმა უნდა თავისი საორიენტაციო ბიუჯეტით ეს ბიუჯეტიც იქნება გადაწყვეტილების ერთ-ერთი მნიშვნელოვანი შემადგენელი ამის შემდეგ ვამუშავებთ სრულფასოვან პროექტს რომელიც არის ასე ვთქვათ ეგრეთ წოდებული სამშენებლო პროექტი მუშანახაზებით თავისი სპეციფიკაციებით ზუსტესით ასე ვთქვათ ყველაფრის შესახებ ხო ანუ აი ეს სრულფასოვანი comprehensive designs რომ ეძახით სრულფასოვანი პროექტია და მას ახლავს უკვე კალკულაცია ასე ვთქვათ როდესაც ამ სპეციფიკაციებზე დაყრდნობით ვაკეთებთ უკვე სრულფასოვან კალკულაციას ანუ ზუსტად ვიცით რა დაждდება ეს ასე ვთქვათ ეს ობიექტი როგორც მშენებლობა ასე მოულაპატრონება და ასე შემდეგ Larry
So this is leading to the end product of comprehensive design will be a package of drawings and specifications that can be tendered and or put out for bid for a contractor to bid on.
ეს სრულფასოვანი პროექტი აუცილებლად უნდა მოიცავდეს ასე ვთქვათ სატენდერო დოკუმენტაციას რა მოთხოვნებიც არსებობს სამშენებლო ტენდერის ჩასატარებლად ხო სრულფასოვანი ინფორმაცია გარდა სპეციფიკაციებისა კიდევ არის სხვადასხვა საკითხები სრულფასოვანი პროექტს ვამბობთ დიზაინს მას უნდა ახლდეს ასეთი ასე ვთქვათ დოკუმენტაცია იმისთვის რომ უკვე პირდაპირ მოხდეს კონკურსის ჩატარება როგორც არის ასე ვთქვათ ბიდინგის ჩატარება ამ სამშენებლო
Larry, there's a question from Sandy.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that first, I think Larry's questions are really, really excellent questions. And I've had a fair bit of construction experience in my life. And if I were going to do a project today, I'd take this list and I would follow this list. I would just work my way down it. So I'm just agreeing with Larry about the value of planning and working through things in this way. The other thing I would add is that in a place like Lagodekhi, you can take advantage. You possibly can take advantage of other construction work going on either in the protected area or in the community. So where I live in Alaska, asphalt is hard to find. Everything's remote. So we often take advantage of a road project that might be occurring because they've got an asphalt machine. And so if we talk to people in the community, talk to people in other agencies, find out what's going on seasonally in the months to come, we can then sometimes partner and combine contracts and take it. We might be able to get some asphalt that otherwise we couldn't afford to get because the machinery and products and things will be there for some other completely different project. So I think I'll just leave it at that.
So Sandy, just to clarify, so your idea is to, especially in remote areas, just to look for the partners around next to you and see if you can engage with them and then in some partnerships that will be really helpful for implementation of your project, right? That was a key message.
Yes,
Well,
that's the key.
I'd say yes and no. Because you're not going to partner with them, but you would take advantage of the fact that they have the equipment and the ability to do the work without having to come to the site. They would already be in the proximity. So it'd save, it costs a contractor to mobilize for a project. So they have to move all their equipment in, they got to move their labor and everything to the site. And if there's another contract or another project going on locally, then you could save all those costs up front because they'd be near your job and you could take advantage of them perhaps.
Larry, we don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but again, that's the obvious part of the competitive bidding, because when you're announcing competitive bidding, they're all based on the specifications and conditions of this exactly the same, but bids are different with the costs. And whoever already has some presence on site, the cost will be lower. So that will be automatically reflected in those biddings. But again, that could be of different ways. That's why I used the word partnership. That could be beyond of that competitive selection procedure in some cases, if it's in the interest of the community. This is that might be the different arrangement too.
Yes, Pata. I mean, Larry makes a good point, but you're capturing what I was trying to say. So my example would be, we were doing something in a park in Alaska, and we wanted to asphalt a trail, but it would cost a lot of money to mobilize. Larry used the exact word that I would use. It costs a lot of money for a company to mobilize, get all their equipment somewhere that's remote, their equipment and supplies and so on. So in this case, in Alaska, we might be in touch with the highway department, because they do a lot of asphalt, and see if they have any road projects in the area that we were doing something inside of a park. And if they were, then we would go talk with them and try to partner, I'll use your word, and see if we might do some kind of an add-on. It can get balled up bureaucratically and things like that. So you have to be savvy, but that's a concept of trying to look around and take advantage of other things going on. And I'll stop. I know Larry wants to keep going.
Yeah, Larry.
Okay. All right. So just to get back to our task at hand and our project, the first thing we want to do is to develop a preliminary a line, and the way we would do that is we would take the vinyl tape, and hopefully there's some trees around, and we would hang tape at your eye level. The knot of the streamer would be at your eye level, so that you can use the clinometer to measure grades. And you'd want to, it's a good idea before you start this process, if you have a 30-meter tape, to pace off and see how many of your paces are in 30 meters. And so as you're walking through the woods, you'll know after, let's say, 45 paces that you're near 30 meters and it's time to hang a flag.
ეს ახლა ადგილს მომზადება იმისთვის, რომ ჩვენ ფაქტურად ანაზომი გავაკეთოთ იმ ჩვენი კილომეტრით, დახრილობები განსაზღვროთ, რითაც დაგჭირდება წერტილები, ასევე რა თქმა უნდა მანძილები ამ წერტილებს შორის კრიტიკულია ამ შემთხვევაში, როდესაც ჩვენი ეგრეთ წოდებული რულეტკა, რაც ასე ვთქვათ, გვაჩვენა ლერიმ, ძალიან გრძელი არ უნდა იყოს, იმიტომ რომ მოუხერხებელი იქნება უკან ახლოვა. დაახლოებით 30 მეტრიანზე საუბარი ამ შემთხვევაში, ეს იქნება ჩვენი ლიმიტი, რომ ამაზე შორს არ უნდა ქონდეს წერტილი. შემდეგი წერტილი, ასე ვთქვათ, რაც ანათვალის ასახებად. ეს ახლა ესეთი პრაქტიკული, ჩვეულებრივი, ასე ვთქვათ, საკითხებია, რომელზე მუშაობს. Larry?
So, you can do this. It's not, doesn't take a lot of effort, and it doesn't take a lot of cost to do this. You can use different flags or different colors of flags, or there are patterns that could be used to identify special features that you want to be sure and remember. And so here's a closer up look of tying the ribbon.
ეს აი ასეთი, ასე ვთქვათ, ნიშნულების გამაგრება ადგილებზე, როგორც ვთქვით, ერთი ის იმ პრინციპით რაც უკვე ვთქვით, და ასევე შეიძლება გამოვიყენოთ სხვადასხვა ფერის ეს, ვთქვათ, ფირი, ასეთი ნიშნულების ასახებად, განსაკუთრებული მნიშვნელობის ჩვენთვის საყურადღებო წერტილების მოსანიშნად. ეს შეიძლება იყოს როგორც საყურადღებო რესურსი, ასევე სახიფათო ადგილი, ან რაღაცა კრიტიკული წერტილი იგივე წყალარენებისთვის და უამრავი რამ. და სხვადასხვა ფერის აი ამ ჩვენი ფირის გამოყენებით შეგვიძლია ამ წერტილების მონიშნა, ხო? Larry?
Okay, sorry, I think my internet was interrupted. So let me go back and get this. We're going to take a break. I'm just about at a point to do that. But okay. Are we back or not?
No, not yet. We can
Okay,
see
all right.
your slides.
You can see my slide?
No.
Okay,
That's-
all right.
Yeah. Now.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, good now.
Okay, good. So, so this is just so you can see what it looks like. But for example, I walked through this area, and you can see there's a flag in the distance right in here where the arrow is that is almost impossible to see. I can see it because I know where I hung it. But you have to put more flags closer together when you're in conditions like this where you can't see very far.
როდესაც ადგილზე ასე თქვა წინასწარი აი თქვა რაღაცა წინა ბილიკი არ არსებობს ან რაღაც ისეთი შედარებით მცენარეული საფარით დაფარულია ეს ხედვა, ასე დროს უფრო ხშირად გჭირდება წერტილების მომზადება, მონიშნების, ნიშნულების მომზადება, იმიტომ რომ დავინახოთ ხო ერთი და მეორე. რომ არ იყოს დაფარული ამ მწვანე მასალით. Larry?
And when you're walking in this kind of brush in where I live, you kind of have to be on the outlook for these. And Pata, it's like when we were at Vashlavani, they have vipers, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
this is a
viper land.
rattlesnake.
Rattlesnake, even more dangerous than vipers in
and-
Barcelona.
Yeah,
Is that a snake from your area? Is it your
yeah,
neighbor?
absolutely. I met one, and
Wow.
we scared each other.
How big is that snake?
Well, it was about 6 feet long,
Wow.
and oh gosh, I don't know. It's pretty good size around.
Yeah.
But you know, this is just an example. I did not take a picture of the one that scared me and that I scared him because I was moving away.
როდესაც ბილიკზე დავდივართ, ჩვენ არ უნდა დაგვაუწყდეს, რომ ვიმყოფებით ბუნებრივ სამყაროში და ეს ბუნებრივი სამყარო ადამიანის გარდა ეკუთვნით სხვა ქმელებებს და ყურადღებით უნდა ვიყოთ, რომ რამე კონფლიქტი არ აღმოჩნდეთ უნებურად, ხო? მაგალითად, ასეთ არსებებთან, რასაც ახლა ხედავთ სლაიდზე, ხო? ფეხი არ დავადგათ შემთხვევით ან რაღაცა ასე ვთქვათ, არ შევაწუხოთ ზედმეტად, ხო? რომ იმათ არ შეგვაწუხონ მერე ჩვენ. Larry?
Take a break.
It's a snake break, right?
Yes, well, it could be a snake break. It could be whatever you want. But let's come back in 10 minutes.
10 minutes. 10 წუთიანი
Yes.
შესვენება გამოვაცხადეთ.
In case we survive, right, Larry, after this break.
Well, George, I survived because I'm talking to you, so no problem. But we kind of scared each other. It was interesting. You know, usually those kind of snakes, they coil up and they rattle their tail to warn you that, that they're around. And none of that happened. The snake recoiled and I recoiled and go back and find my presentation. And okay, so this is I'm calling it design. Some people call it layout, but this is sort of the final center line. And again, I think we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the break, but what we're doing is we're laying out a center line for the trail. And we're going to use the preliminary work with the flags to identify where the trail's going to go. And of course, when you're doing preliminary, you can adjust, you can take the flags down, you can move the trail over or make changes very easily. And so that's all been done. And you have kind of a rough idea of where the trail, or pretty good at more than a rough idea of where the trail is going.
დაკვალვის დროს, ესე იგი, ჩვენ რასაც ვაკეთებთ, ეს არის ღერძი. ანუ ამ ღერძის დაახლოებით, აი ღერძი იქნება ამ ჩვენი ბილიკის ამის დაკვალვას ვაკეთებთ და ვცდილობთ. შემდეგ მის გარშემო უკვე დავაპროექტებთ, ასე ვთქვათ, ბილიკს. Larry?
So as the woman said in the video, sort of the first thing you want to do is find out where your eye level is on your partner, and you want to have two people. This is a two-person team.
როგორც ვიდეოში იყო, ნახეთ, როდესაც ჩვენ არ გამოვიყენებთ ამ, ასე ვთქვათ, აი ამ ძელებს, ამ ჩვენი როდესაც ვაფიქსირებთ ტერიტორიაზე, შეგვიძლია ადამიანი გამოვიყენოთ, როგორც წესი წყვილში ხდება ეს და იქაც იყო ვიდეოში და აქაც იგივე ამბობს ლერი, რომ უნდა ამ ზომელმა უნდა თავის პარტნიორზე გაასწოროს თვალის სიმაღლე მის რაღაცა სხეულის ნაწილზე, რომ დაიმახსოვროს დისტანციიდან რას უნდა დაუმიზნოს, ასე ვთქვათ, ეს ამზომი აპარატურა. Larry?
So this team is comprised of two individuals. The person on the left is going to be the leader, and he is the most knowledgeable about trail construction.
ამ ორში ერთ-ერთი არის ხოლმე ლიდერი, ანუ ვინც უფრო მეტად გამოცდილია, მეორე ასისტირებას უწევს.
The person on the right is going to be the note taker, and he's going to read the angles, the readings on the clinometer, and he's going to write down distances in a field book.
ასისტენტის როლი იქნება ანათვლების აღება და ჩაწერა, ასე ვთქვათ, ამ ანათვლებს.
So sort of the first thing they're going to do is to throw out the tape, and you can see this measuring tape has been taken off the roll and it's been wound up by hand, and here's the reason for doing that.
I თვითონ აი ამ საზომი წოდებული რულეტკის, ასე ვთქვათ, გამოყენებაზე ახლა საუბარი, წინასწარ ქონდა გაშლილი, შემდეგ როგორც ჩანს გატყორცნა, ასე ვთქვათ.
And while we have this picture up, Pata, I would point out the carabiner on the end of the tape.
ბოლოში კარაბინი აქვს ჩასაბმელად. And?
All right, and to begin, we're going to begin with the first station. And you can see the knowledgeable person here is the leader. I'm just going to call him the leader. And he's writing the station on the wire flags.
და ამ თვითონ აი ამ ჩვენ ნიშნულზეც გაკეთებს, ასე ვთქვათ, გარკვეულ, ასე ვთქვათ, სააღრიცხვო.
And we're going to start off with the first station is going to be 0 plus 0, 0.
პირველი წერტილი იქნება 0 plus 0.
So he writes that on the flag, and he sticks the flag in the ground.
და ამ თუ დროშები გვაქვს, დროშაზეც წერს ამ ანათვალის საკოდო, ასე ვთქვათ, დასახელებას და აფიქსირებს ადგილს.
And if there's a reference around like another trail that you're intersecting or something, you can also refer maybe to that location so that you'll know where you're starting.
Please go ahead.
I would recommend, I have a clinometer application on my telephone, and I have a GPS. So I would recommend, using those at this first station, and we'll go on. But we're sticking the flag in the ground at station 1+00. I like to use the taller flags because if it's brushy, the taller flags are more visible. You may need to do some clearing around so you can find the flag.
ამ თვითონ ნიშნულის დროშასაც შეეხება, უფრო მაღალი უკეთესია, ვიდრე დაბალი, კარგად ჩანს. მანამდე კიდევ ლერი თქვა, რომ მას აპლიკაცია აქვს ამ კლინომეტრის თვითონ ტელეფონში.
So here's the leader riding the station with a marker, and you want to use a permanent marker so weather doesn't erase the writing.
და ეს მარკერი რასაც გამოვიყენებ, ჯობია რომ იყოს ერთი მყარი, ანუ პერმანენტ თუ ქვია, რომელიც არ იშლება ადვილად, თქო, დასვენების შემთხვევაშიც. Larry?
Yeah, so the leader, he hooks I recommend that he hooks the tape to his belt buckle. I like to put it in front because, usually when you're taking readings, you're going to be looking at the other person in the front. So, but he has it in the back.
აქ ახლა სხვადასხვა მიდგომებზე ალაპარაკი, ეს კარაბინით შედარებით თავის უკანა მხარეს აქვს დამაგრებული, თუმცა მეო წინა მხარეს დავიმაგრებდიო, ამბობს, იმიტომ რომ ჩანიშვნების დროს შემოუტრიალდები და ასე ჯობია.
Okay, we're going to ignore the next slide because we're going right on. And so here's yeah, so and that's what I'm saying, and I would recommend that you don't hold the tape tight because the tape in that situation can cut your hand or certainly burn you. And the leader is identifying a drainage that you'll want to make a note of in your book, and he's going to be calling out items, and there are items that'll be that you'll need to construct. So if you have a drainage there, you'll need to have some kind of a solution. You may want to dip the trail down or something, but anyway, and the person, the note taker, is reading the tape to identify what station this occurs. And we're gonna go through a field book, and I'll show you examples tomorrow of a field book and the kind of notes that you'd be taking.
ეს მაგალითია იმისა, რაც ადრე გითხარით, რომ ჩვენ აქ ანათვალებს ვიღებთ არა მარტო ასე ვთქვათ მოდულურს, თუმცა რაღაცა ასე ვთქვათ დახელობისთვის რაც გვჭირდება, არამედ ასევე საყურადღებო ადგილების, მაგალითად დრენაჟისთვის მნიშვნელოვანი ადგილისთვის, ხო? აი ამას აი კონკრეტულად ამ შემთხვევაში ლიდერი, რომელიც წინ არის, სწორედ გაჩერდა იქ, სადაც პოტენციურად დრენაჟისთვის მნიშვნელოვანი დაწრეტისთვის, გადარინებისთვის მნიშვნელოვანი ადგილია და ამიტომ იღებენ მის ანათვალს. მერე ამბობს, რომ ხვალე გვაჩვენებს თვითონ იმ ჩანაწერების წიგნში როგორ გამოიყურება ეს ანათვალები. Larry?
So you can be thinking now about some of the things that you would be wanting to write in your field book to note, and one of them, would be obviously locations of wayside exhibits. You might have a hazardous tree that needs to be cut down for safety reasons. I've already mentioned kind of a water course. There may be the need for a retaining wall or something for your trail. So those kind of items are going to be written in your field book.
ადგილები, ობიექტები, რასაც უნდა მიექცეს ყურადღება სხვადასხვა მიზეზით. ან არის ჩვენთვის სასურველი და საინტერესო როგორც რესურსი, ან არის რაღაცა ასე ვთქვათ ჩვენი პროექტირების დროს საინჟინრო თვალსაჩინო ყურადღება აქვს მისაქცევი, როგორც დრენაჟია, როგორც მაგალითად შეიძლება იყოს ისეთი ხე, რომელიც გამხმარია და საფრთხეს წარმოადგენს, ან გამხმარი ტოტები აქვს მაგალითად და რომელსაც დაჭირდება მიხედვა და ასე შემდეგ. აი ესეთი ადგილები. ან დაგჭირდება საყრდენი კედელი სადღაც და ასე შემდეგ. ან რაღაცა შედარებით მნიშვნელოვანი გეოპლასტიკური, ანუ რაღაცა მიწის სამუშაოს ჩატარება, ხო? ანუ აი ესეთი ადგილები უნდა მოვნიშნოთ. ჩვენ თავიდანვე ანათვალში, როცა ვაკეთებთ ამ წინა საპროექტო, ასე ვთქვათ, ესეთ ინფორმაციას ვიღებთ ადგილს.
So we would say that the note taker is looking at the smart end of the tape, and the leader would just take, actually the note taker would tell the leader what station to write on the flag that gets stuck in the ground.
Ну, აქ ეხა თანამშრომლობენ ლიდერი და ასისტენტი, ორივე თავის როლი აქვს. მაგალითად, რასაც ასისტენტი ხედავს ანათვალს ამ ფირზე, ასე ვთქვათ, ანუ ქართულად რა ქვია ამ რულეტკას, ვინმეს არ ახსოვს.
რულეტკა თქვი და გავიგებთ.
ხო, არ მომწონს რომ ამბობ მაგას და ამიტომ თუ ვინმე მიცის თქვით და კარგით.
გამზომი პირი.
ხო, მეტრიანი კი ბატონო, იყოს ეს. და შესაბამისად იგივე თქვა წინა კოდური სახელი რა იყო იმ წერტილის, იმასაც კარნახობს ასისტენტი ლიდერს და ასე მიუყვებიან საქმეს. Larry?
Yes, okay. So in this slide, the leader sees a vista, and he's pointing out that you want to note this in your field book, that this is a good place. There's a good view from this location. And, you know, you may want to put a bench there, or you may want to do some clearing, but you would put that in your notebook of what specifically needs to occur there.
და ასევე იგივე თემას ვაგრძელებთ, თუ შეამჩნევს ლიდერი ისეთ ადგილს, ან წინასწარ იცის, მაგრამ ამ კვლევის დროს დააფიქსირებს ადგილს, სადაც ასე ვთქვათ, მნიშვნელოვანი ასე ვთქვათ, საშუალება ვიზუალური კავშირის ან გარემოსთან, ანუ რაღაცა ხედია გარკვეულწილად მნიშვნელოვანი, იმ წერტილსაც ასე ვთქვათ, აფიქსირებთ. Larry?
So you want to hold the tape as tight or taut as you can. You don't want a big bow in your tape, and you want to keep it as level as possible also, so you get an accurate reading.
Ну, აქ ასე ვთქვათ, აი ამ ჩვენი საზომი ფირის გეომეტრიას მიაქცია ყურადღება ლერიმ, რა თქმა უნდა, ის არც უნდა მოშებული იყოს, რომ უფრო ანათვალი მეც არ გვაჩვენებდეს, ვიდრე არის მანძილი რეალურად. და ამ გაჭიმული უნდა იყოს საშუალებისამებრ გაჭიმული და ასევე დონეს უნდა მიაქციოთ ყურადღება, ხო? იყოს რაღაცა ერთი ჰორიზონტალურ დონეზე.
So the note taker takes the reading and he's getting ready to write the station. We call it stations in the book. And let's just go on. So he's writing in the book the stations that were measured, and the person on the other end is going to write the station number that the note taker tells them what station he's at. And იგივე პროცესი კიდევ ერთხელ ავწევთ, ასე ვთქვათ, იმ საყურადღებო წერტილში, რომ ლიდერი სადაც დგას, ის ჩერდება იმ საყურადღებო წერტილებს და ასევე აფიქსირებს დროშებს, რომელსაც აწერს იმ შესაბამის კოდურ, ასე ვთქვათ, ნომერს, ხო? რასაც თვითონ ეს ასისტენტი ეუბნება.
Larry, George has a question.
Go ahead, George.
Yeah, thank you, if I may. So just to clarify once again, so as I understood, the note taker or notes are not only about stations, but also about route if there is something significant to be noted, right? Or not, or notes are only about stations and surroundings and some important things.
Yeah, anything significant that you need to consider during construction.
Yes.
So,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
there
So,
was
for
some-
instance, there is a water kind of running in the in between of two stations. You're noting that, or there is a
Exactly,
landslide place or something like that. Okay.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and the leader is not going to know what station, so the note taker has to tell the leader what station to write on the flag.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. So, just a reminder from the video that you look into the clinometer and not through the clinometer. So you have to have both eyes open, and you have to hold it so that light gets in to the dial. So the circle, this dial is where light enters the meter. So you can't use your left hand because it'll make it dark.
ვიდეოდან გახსოვთ, რომ აი კილომეტრს გამოყენების დროს თქვენ ორივე თვალი გჭირდებათ, ერთით უყურებით კილომეტრში, მეორეთი ასე ვთქვათ უყურეთ ობიექტს. ასევე ისეთ ასე ვთქვათ მარტივ რაღაცებს გავუსვალებ ხაზი, მაგალითად, რომ თვითონ ეს რაც არის აქ თვითონ ასე ვთქვათ მაჩვენებელი დისკი, რომელსაც ჭირდება რომ მუდმივად ასე ვთქვათ სინათლე ხდებოდეს. აღარ დავიჭიროთ ასე ვთქვათ ისეთ ხელში, რომელსაც ამას დავფარავთ. ანუ სინათლის ბლოკირებას მოვახცეთ, მაშინ ანათვალს ვერ ავიღოთ, ხო? ამიტომ უჭირავს მარჯვენა ხელში, როგორც ხედავთ, მარცხენა ხელში რომ დაეჭირა, დაფარავდა. Larry?
Okay. So writing what we call the stations, the measurements, the length of the trail on the flags, it's 30 meters, but we're dropping the 0 because there's not much room on the flag. And, you know, as we increase distances, then the number gets larger. And so we'll remember and know that that's 30 meters, but for the purposes of writing on the flag, we'll write it as 3 plus 0, 0.
Ну, აქ ესე ვთქვათ, იმის გამო რომ ეს დროშა პატარა, თვითონ ეს რაც შემდეგ ესე ვთქვათ წერტილებში რაკეთებს მანძილები გაიზრდება, მაგალითად 30 მეტრს მაგერად დავწეთ 3 პლუს 0.
And you can also see from this video that it's pretty cumbersome to try to hold flags, this person's writing on a field book. He's not taking notes, but he's just using it to write on and writing a pen. There's a lot going on with this person. So he doesn't have enough hands to hold the tape, hold the flags, hold the pen. So that's the reason the flag's hooked to him and why you need a scabbard to put the wire flags in.
So he may need some another assistant, right, to carry the flag.
Yeah, or have an assistant. If that's possible.
Volunteer, for example.
Maybe an intern.
But why he's having that clinometer in his chest? So he's
Why does he have a clinometer?
So he's double checking back.
It might be useful, and also, you know, you want to be reading and recording the side slope. So somebody's got to do that. And he could be reading the side slope and telling the note taker what the side slope is at this station. So you need to work that out between the two individuals.
Yeah. I asked this question because in the video there was some technique to double check the accuracy through looking to those marking points from different sides.
Yeah, she was looking back and forward at the same time, but
Yeah.
with two people and they both
Yes.
have clinometers, they both
Yeah.
could do that. So you
they could play this way too. I mean,
Yeah.
assistant and the leader.
right. So do we need to explain that to the?
No. This was question to you on this. They saw the
Okay.
videos.
We got lots of time, so we're doing good. So I'm gonna, in this, I wanted to show you how to wrap the tape to transport it when you're finished.
აქ ახლა როგორ უნდა დავახვიოთ ეს საზომი ფირი, როცა მოვჩებით.
So yeah, you start with the end, this end, and it's like a figure 8 around your little finger and your thumb. So it's pretty big at the end.
So I'm just curious to see the end.
Yeah, well, keep your eyes open.
Yeah, and the some rhythmic soundtrack would complement this video.
Yeah, my video crew's making fun of me. So now you just wrap it around. And there you go.
It was very useful.
Pardon?
I'm saying this was very useful for not only for the tape, also for the other ropes that you could have.
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on out there. So, you know, the demonstration, we used an open area so you could see what was going on. But, you know, if you're working in the forest, you may not have the luxury of having all the space and being able to see so nicely. So, you know, the things that you want to identify, we talked a little bit about at the trailhead already, and the kind of things that would be included at the trailhead, but you certainly want to mark that in your field book with a station. You want to mark on the left side or the right side, I'm sorry, the wayside exhibits when you come to them, and also note the wayside exhibits. If a wheelchair is not coming up to this, you know, there's not much construction involved. You're just gonna dig some holes and maybe some concrete and set the exhibits. But if you want wheelchairs to come up and actually look at this, you're gonna have to do some construction back here to extend your paving or your tread.
Yeah, prepare a platform for the wheelchair.
Yeah.
აი მნიშვნელოვანი ასოცირებული ინფრასტრუქტურა რაც არის მცირე ფორმები ხო, რა თქმა უნდა, აი ამ ჩვენი წინასწარი აზოვის დროს პოტენციალურად როგორც იმ მომენტში ვფიქრობთ, რა თქმა უნდა, დაფიქსირებთ ასეთ ადგილებს, რომელიც შემდგომ დიზაინში უკვე ზუსტდება. აქ უბრალოდ ხაზი ქონდა გასმული იმას, რომ თუ ხელმისაწვდომობის სტანდარტში უნდა იყოს, თუმცა ამ დახრილ დაფას ვამონტაჟებთ ადგილზე, იქ შესაბამისი პლატფორმის მსგავსი უნდა იყოს მომზადებული მის ძირში, ასე ვთქვათ, რომ იქ ეტლით შეძლოს ადამიანმა მისვლა, დაჩერება და ამ ინტელექტუალური კავშირის დამყარება, ასე ვთქვათ, ამ დახრილ დაფის საშუალებით. Larry?
And one one thing that I'm thinking about when you're doing the trail is well, a couple of things. Number one, a loop trail, you would have to assume that people could take the trail in either direction, from either clockwise or counterclockwise. So the trail width would have to be constructed to accommodate people passing each other.
ისევ და ისევ ჩვენი ბილიკის დანიშნულებიდან გამომდინარე, როდესაც თქვათ პროექტს ვაკეთებთ, იქ ვითვალისწინებთ ორმხრივ მოძრაობას, მაგალითად თუ როდესაც გვაქვს წრიული ბილიკი, მაშინ აი ესეთი სიგანე დავაპროექტებთ პატიურად, გვეწოდინება რომ აქ იქნება ორმხრივი მოძრაობა, იმიტომ რომ ზოგი საათის მიმართულებით იმოძრაობს, ზოგი საათის საწინააღმდეგო მიმართულებით, ამ ბილიკზე ორივე მხარეს იქნება დასაშვები. Larry?
And also, we've made a lot of, or there's been a lot made of the fact that this is in a forest. But I note when I look at the map that this trail is going to be between two rivers, and so I wonder if there's an interpretive message, about the rivers or one of the rivers or water or something that would, make it advisable to maybe bend the trail close to the river so you could send that message.
It will be. It comes to the bench of the one of the rivers.
Okay.
გიორგი აქ იმაზე ლაპარაკი რამდენად იქნება საინტერპრეტაციო ასახვა პირდაპირ რესურსში.
კი, ალბათ იქნება, იმიტომ რომ იქ ადგილია, გასაჩერებელი ადგილია იქ ზუსტად და ისე დასასვენებელი.
Larry?
Okay, so I just threw this in because this trail, a lot of the examples that we're using are requiring maybe a lot of cut and fill, but it may not, may be more simple, and it could be as simple as having a 10 to 15 centimeter thick base of gravel. And you probably put some geotextile down before you put the gravel down, and you'd want to compact that surface so that, add some water and some compaction. We'll talk about construction a little bit more later, but, I'm thinking in my mind, a minimum of 2, probably more likely a 3 meter wide trail. And I'll be curious to see what you come up with.
ლერი აქ თავს მოსაზრებას გიზიარებთ, მისი აზრით ეს ბილიკი, ლაგოდეხის ბილიკზეა საუბარი, რასაც ამ წუთისაც ვფიქრობ, 3 მეტრის სიგანის წარმოუდგენია, მოშანდაკებული იატაკი რაც არის, მასზე, ასე ვთქვათ, ესეთი ჩატკეპნილი, გამკორებული ღორღის საფარით, რომელიც 10-15 სანტიმეტრის სისქის იქნება. ეს არის მისი მოსაზრება. Larry?
So finally, what I've seen is this that was provided, which I appreciate, and it does look like it might overlook the river down at the station at E. So I don't know if this project is a reconstruction or a new construction.
There is some initial trail in there that will be taken in consideration. Mostly because of the people want to use already disturbed areas as a sustainable design approach. But in some places they could go beyond and still have additional more improved sections. That's an approach.
Yeah, and so if that were the case, that's why I sketched in the red. I mean, I haven't been there, so I don't know what's possible. But I'm just looking at the flow of the trail. I like us, to get rid of these long straight lines over on this backside, particularly what I'd call the backside. Anyway, I like these flowing curves like this, and if you could make it go like that, and if you have the ability to maybe leave this alignment and put some nice some nice curves in the trail and and push it away. I don't like how close this is just my critique of not even having been there. So I understand all that, but this seems to be too close. If you have groups, I would think you'd want to keep a more distance between the legs of the trail.
ეს ლერის მოსაზრება, რასაც ახლა აი ამ მხოლოდ ასე ვთქვათ, გეგმილის საფუძველზე ჯელობს, მაგრამ არ არის ნამყოფი და სირცულად არ აქვს ახმული და ამიტომ თავს ვერ დადებს, რასაც ფარჩევებს იძლევა. ეს წითელი მონაკვეთები ის ასე ვთქვათ, როგორც თვითონ ფიქრობს, რაც იქნებოდა უკეთესი ამ მომენტში, სანამ არ უნახავს ასე ვთქვათ ადგილზე. როცა ჩამოვა და ნახავს, მაშინ იქნება უფრო პორტრეტებით იქნება თავის პირადი მოსაზრება. თქვენ დიზაინერებს თქვენ პირადი გექნებათ, რა თქმა უნდა, არგუმენტაციით. Larry?
All right. So, sorry. So that's the end for today. And if there, I mean, I'm happy to answer questions. There's some things in the chat. Maybe we've already covered those, but
Yeah, the chat questions have been answered.
okay. So we've got a little time if there are questions or anything we need to discuss. If you know, I can't believe it. You know, it's pretty technical process. It's kind of tried to make it simple, make engineering simple. But you know, anyway, if there are questions or clarifications, I'm happy to talk to them.
კითხვები თუ გვაქვს, დავსვათ ახლა. ამ რაზეც ქონდა საუბარი, ზვიად?
Zviad.
Hello, thank you, Larry, for a very interesting lecture. So it's a very technical. I have a practice of doing the trails, planning them, and also the building them, but mostly for planning. The technique that you showed us with the flags, we have not used it. So my question is the stage. At which stage you are placing the flags, and what will be the interval? So you put a flag, and like when you are starting the building the trail already, right? So what will be the interval between placing the flags and when you actually will start to build the trail? And also you mentioned the GPS, but I could not see that in example those guys who are using the GPS. It's not needed already because it's the pre-building stage, or they are using it.
So they did not use it, but you know, you have that available to you. Most of us do. I have those applications on my phone, so I can tell the elevation, and so I think my recommendation would be that to take an elevation and the coordinates at the beginning, obviously, at the begin and end of your work. And then at maybe not every station, but maybe at every wayside, you know, assuming there are going to be 12 waysides. If you took an elevation and the coordinate readings at those locations, I think that would be really helpful to map the trail more accurately, you know, using Google Earth or whatever program you want to use. And so, I mean, if you want to be more precise, you could take those readings at every station, and you know, you're going to have every 30 meters, you take a elevation and coordinates, and you'll have a pretty precise map of the trail, and without much effort, using handheld devices. Does that answer your question?
Not my question about the flags, at which stage you place the flag, and what's the interval between placing the flag and the actual building of the trail? So yeah, in our case, we usually use that Garmin GPS or even our phones, and
Sure.
then we're using our softwares to plan them, and we also before we go on the field research, of course, we make some research, like office research, with the maps and according to the relief of the place. So using the ISO lines and so on. So we have already some sketch what we want to research. Then we go on a field trip with the GPS, trying many different versions, how we can make the trail. Then we choose the best one. And we are also putting all kind of information. I mean, as you mentioned, the resources, like, for example, the stone or the water source or so on. So we putting all kind of information there. But we don't place the flags, and we are placing these flags during the building process. So pre-building, when we start the building, we are taking some sections, we are putting the flags for the people who gonna build it and so on. So there is no big gap between the placing the flags and building the flags. So my question is, what is the best practice? How you are doing that?
Well, I think the best practice is that as you're building the trail, you take the flags and set them on the edge of your, of your site, so you don't lose them, but they're not in the center line. I mean, the flags, the wire flags, are the center of the trail. So just set them off on the side and leave them there until you're finished, and then you can pick them up and throw them away because you won't need them anymore. I mean,
so
you built. Go ahead,
you're putting flag in the center of supposed trail, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So if it is a 2 meters, so 1 meter from each side.
You'll be a meter on either side, or a meter and a half, whatever you decide the width of the trail is going to be.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And Sandy, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I do. 2 lessons learned from my experience. One is when you're picking the color of the flags, think about fall color. I don't know what colors show up in Lagodekhi. I'm guessing probably some yellows, but maybe reds, because if you get a lot of fall color, flags can disappear when people are looking at them. So think about, will fall come, and will the color of the flags be as useful? The other is the people who are going to do the work, check if they're colorblind, their vision, if they're colorblind. I've run into this. And so certain people with certain kinds of color blindness will look out and they won't be able to see something that you can see. I've run into it. It's really surprising. And it's a simple thing. Just ask, is anybody colorblind? Pata, I don't know if you need to translate that or not, but so that's all I wanted to add.
No. That's I mean, that's the life.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I would add, when you're hanging the flags, you may make the flags long enough that they hang down. So a little breeze will, move them. So that helps you to be able to see the vinyl flags that you're hanging from trees. This doesn't help you for the wire flags, but you should hang a vinyl flag above the wire flag. So the station mark, so that you can find the stations. And I have another question, is the availability of materials. Can you get the vinyl flagging in Georgia and the wire flags?
As I know, usually it's the best practice is to use the cotton, these flags, or or some material which can be so it can be degraded in the nature if you will leave it there. but here it's not possible. So you can order it from the internet. We usually buy it from Amazon, but usually we are using the plastic ones, which are used for the road construction, or just red, white, that kind of stripes for.
Sure. And so the question is, can you buy that in Tbilisi? Are there sources to purchase that? Or we have bought these materials, and I will be bringing them with me when I come to Georgia. So I'll have a couple of clinometers, some field books. We'll have vinyl tape and the wire flags. So we'll have that. I just didn't know, because we didn't know if those would be available in Tbilisi or in Georgia.
No, they won't be. So it would be
Okay.
nice if you would bring the good examples for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and as Ethan says, we'll have lots of flags. So I mean, I think we'll have 50 stations, and they come in bunches of 100. So we'll have like 300 flags. You'll have plenty of flags, but you don't know what's going to happen between the stations. If you'll have intermediate sort of stationing too. So you'll need more than 50 flags, and I don't know. But we'll have, like I said, we'll have a couple of clinometers, plenty of wire flags, plenty of vinyl flags, and the auger. And if I can get through customs with all that stuff, I'll have it. So I don't know what kind of duty I'm going to have to pay, but Ethan's got deep pockets. So.
That's not Ethan's pocket, that's ITAP's pocket.
Yeah, well, he represents ITAP, so.
Larry,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, Larry, I was just going to bring up if just to think about in the description, the scope of work, we talked about low profile, true to the name, wayside exhibits, and then the upright informational interpretive panels. And so the way Pata has described it is we may be interpreting things that we don't actually see there on the ground, like the conservation movement and man's impact on the environment and those types of things. So, I would recommend taking a very careful look at kind of spacing those so you don't end up with 3 or 4 waysides and then you go a long way and then there's an upright exhibit. Usually at the trailhead you have informational stuff with a map and safety message, any possible hazards, whether it be, reptiles or insects or whatever. And then you have your waysides. But I think some of those little educational stops that are talked about in the scope of work, they're going to take up some space. So, with the surveying and the trail layout and design, I think having some sort of a little, like you said, amphitheater, a place where a leader and a group can gather to have, more in-depth discussion and further down the trail to, number one, prevent vandalism, and also to give the participants the immersion experience of being in the forest and kind of that calm down effect of the forest before they start entering an educational type of mode.
Yeah,
Andrea, to that point, excuse me, Pata.
I was going to say that's a very important point because that's part of the design. Again, how we should be looking and selecting the spots for locating those upright interpretive panels, kiosks, as we call sometimes, which we'll combine those. That's very important. That should be still connected to the trail, should be some important noticeable spot on the trail, and then we should locate, and as you said, Andrea, should have a availability of enough space to do that because that trail still will be functioning as a area where people will be moving in opposite directions, and still we need some space to talk and stand next to those vertical panels. So that's a very important part of the design.
Right. Yeah, and to that point, I was trying to figure out, this is too much engineering, I'm sure, but if we're going to have 12 race-side exhibits, for example, in 1,500 meters, you're going to want an exhibit roughly every 120 to 150 meters. So, I mean, that would be a rule, what we call a rule of thumb. So you'd want to space those out and maybe alternate them from one side of the trail to the next, whatever, but those are things you can think about as you're laying out the trail.
Yes.
It seems like there's a lot of flexibility there in that a lot of these are not going to be true waysides. So it's not very site specific. You can kind of put it anywhere that makes sense in the design of the layout of the trail. And those areas where it does require being, by a particular area, those are more fixed points, I guess.
Yeah, but again, Andrea, that in terms of stops, that should have some pace, should have some logic while you walk on the trail. That's all the part of the design of the educational, environmental education trail. So that's still part of the trail. It's not just a very standalone or whatever, feature. That's why that should be still connected to the trail design.
Right. And also knowing your audience, at least in the U.S., environmental education is geared to, I believe it's 4th or 5th grade, and maybe connecting with your local schools or schools in general and finding out what topics, what subjects are being covered, that if a teacher were to bring students out there, it'd be in line with what it is they are scheduled to teach. I don't know if it's that organized at this point or
APA has a connection, so they run this environmental educational program. And again, in NATO, she was on the one session. She's too busy. She's the head of the operations division, so she's really leading that environmental education program. So again, they are in constant connections with the schools. Again, this is a back and forth process. And again, she will take a part in that from the headquarters side, and then director of the Lagodekhi Park is also very much environmental educationalist, so he's good in that too.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, just as long as there's coordination, because you don't want to make this beautiful trail and the students come out and it's totally off of what they're studying,
Well, at least it's a good point which you are raising, Andrea. At least what this project envisages when trails are ready, there are, if I'm not wrong, such kind of piloting students visits with teacher is planned in this.
Oh, perfect, well. Perfect. So kind of test
so they can test this and kind of and we will use them as a kind of TOT for other schools and other.
Right. Sometimes what we've done in the parks is we've made up temporary waysides. We've printed them on material that's somewhat weather resistant but not permanent to have the expense, and just kind of experimented and see, have little focus groups or have little critiques with the teacher and the students and see, does this work? What do we need to change? It's fine as it is, or, just allow that flexibility before you start spending the big money on the final product.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
I'm curious and concerned about the email, and because I wanted to send out a bibliography also. So I'm hoping that maybe my emails went to people's junk or something. They just didn't see it.
So Ethan, what was your discovery of the problem?
I think a couple did go to junk email. George wrote to me and said that his did indeed go to his junk email box. And I think that a couple folks may not have checked their email to see it there, but
Okay.
that's my.
But
right. Well, I'm going to send out a bibliography.
Ethan.
Mine
Pardon?
came straight to you, but
Yeah.
Larry's didn't. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to send out a bibliography. So hopefully you'll get that, and we'll check back and see, I guess. Figure out
What I can
how to
do, Larry,
that.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I didn't mean to. What I can do, once you send that around, I'll resend it around like I did with your attachment,
Okay.
just to be
Just
doubly
send-
sure.
Not even recent, just send reminder and we will go and try to find it somewhere.
Okay.